France on the March presents an exclusive historical document. Dakar, after the attack of the 23rd, 24th and 25th of September 1940. While the French ground, sea and air forces counter the British attack, an official plane carries on board the cameraman whose images will evoke for you those historic events which took place near Dakar, the capital of French West Africa and the key to all Africa. Dakar, a large French port, the hub of the South Atlantic and the key to the route to the Cape, the port that England wanted to appropriate, has been victoriously defended by our seamen, airmen and soldiers. Here is Dakar, the capital of French West Africa. The plane belonging to the expedition that came out to investigate just after the failed attack flies over the magnificent European quarter. Here is the cathedral, consecrated some years ago in the course of a triumphant voyage by His Eminence Cardinal Verdier. In the center of this garden we have Prote Square with its monument to the fallen of the 1914-18 war. And here is the palace of the Governor-General of French West Africa. It was from here that the order to offer resistance was given. It was here that the scathing reply to the British ultimatum was devised. At a window of this palace, here is Governor-General Boisson contemplating the town that he was able to keep for France. Here is General Barrot, who was able to combine perfectly the action of the ground forces with naval operations. Here is Rear Admiral Landriot, who put the means of defense he had at his disposal to good use. Here is Captain Mazin, the commander of the Richelieu and his staff. Now you know the heroic defenders of Dakar. With what means were they able to defeat the British who tried to seize the capital of French West Africa? With what defenses were they able to repel the attempts to land? First, thanks to the coastal defenses provided by the carefully camouflaged batteries of Cape Manuel. Then there is our Richelieu. You know the vessel Richelieu, which as announced several times by the English radio, faithful to its tradition of truth, had actually been sunk. Here it is in its mooring place near the breakwater, protected by metal nets against any unexpected attack. For a ship which the London announcers have frequently consigned to the bottom of the sea, we must admit that it does not seem to be faring too badly. Under the orders of an elite command, the men of the Richelieu are expected to undertake intensive training. These are the exercises of action stations. The heavily armed Richelieu is also marvelously well equipped for anti-aircraft fighting. It has ack guns which have caused some damage to the reconnaissance planes of the British aircraft carrier Hermes or the battlecruiser Barham. The anti-aircraft defenses of the Richelieu achieved wonders during the attack. In a moment we will see the result of one of its scores. The twin anti-aircraft machine guns of our 35,000-ton battleship prevent the Royal Navy's reconnaissance planes from carrying out their dangerous work of finding the range of artillery. Here are the 152mm guns and the 380mm guns, which responded to the deadly fire of the big English warships. Some of the shells of the Richelieu hit their mark. This true floating citadel, put to admirable use by its commander Mazin, who was able to galvanize his men, caused considerable damage to the ships taking part in the attack that then chose to desist. It should be noted that this is the second time that the Richelieu has had to deal with the British when anchored in Dakar. Here is Rear Admiral Landriot, who holds in his hand the historic text that Governor Boisson sent to the English Admiral in reply to his ultimatum. France entrusted Dakar to me. I will defend Dakar to the end. The English had dropped pamphlets on the city. These pamphlets addressed the able seamen, inviting them to join the British in order to save France. They little knew the traditions of honour and discipline of the French Navy. For the civilian population, they used another method. "We are coming to bring you supplies." It was an unusual type of supplies and particularly indigestible, as it came in the form of 380mm shells that fell in the courtyard of the police station in the native quarter of town. Here is the result of that clumsily led expedition. One palm tree where the solid trunk was entirely pierced through by shrapnel. One garage that was literally ploughed over by a heavy projectile. The metal roof collapsed, shot through by shrapnel. Hangars were destroyed. All these light buildings were of course unable to stand up to shelling. Cars were torn to pieces. Over there, that used to be a peaceful shop where the owners who were settlers had worked for years and years to acquire some worldly goods. All that is left is a hole caused by a shell. All the work of clearing has been carried out in an orderly and methodical fashion. But the European part of the city is not all that was touched. The Medina, or native quarter, has also suffered, and the sight there too is sad to see. But the black people have gone back to work without becoming discouraged. In a few weeks the houses that have been destroyed will have been rebuilt, the ruins will have been cleared, and life will be back to normal. Was it necessary to use the most powerful modern battleships like the Resolution or the Barham to strike a few modest houses, the humble property of decent people? In Protes Square, where the monument to the fallen of 1914 to 1918 was raised, a crowd is gathering with curiosity round an enemy plane downed by the Richelieu's anti-aircraft defences, and which has been exhibited on the orders of Governor Boisson. There is a notice that comments on the official communiqué in its own way. The war does not lack a degree of humour. Here now is Rufisque, the groundnuts capital, considered as the Champs-Élysées of French West Africa. We can very easily see the 3 wooden landing stages where the assailants had planned to disembark. But there too, all precautions had been taken by Commander Millon, who was in charge of the post of Rufisque. He used its means of defence as well as possible. 2 batteries situated beside the lighthouse. Several small posts armed with machine guns. It is with these relatively poor means, but thanks to his coolness under fire, his energy, and the handful of men that he commanded so forcefully, that Commander Millon succeeded in aborting the attempt at a landing. But victory has only been achieved at the cost of the sacrifice of some. Here is the wreck of the destroyer Audacieux, which came to run aground on the beach between Dakar and Rufisque. The destroyer Audacieux had left on a reconnaissance mission to the south to bypass the island of Gorée. It suddenly found itself facing heavy British battle cruisers, which could only be made out indistinctly in the fog. In a few moments the destroyer was in flames. 83 French sailors died in this unequal battle. The wounded are almost all suffering from burns. 110 survivors managed to escape by swimming through slicks of burning oil. Here is the submarine Beauvaisier returning to port, commanded by Captain Lancelot. The submarine was one of the units responsible for the naval victory. The Beauvaisier, a symbolic name for our seamen since it reminds us of a victory gained over the British fleet by Tourville in 1691. It was the Beauvaisier which, despite 2 accompanying enemy torpedo boats, managed at 2,000 meters to send 4 parallel torpedoes to hit the battleship Resolution. After seriously wounding its adversary, it moved away, dived and avoided the depth charges launched by the accompanying torpedo boats. 2 hours later, when Captain Lancelot surfaced, he saw that the enemy squadron had broken ranks and was heading away to the south. In the European hospital, the commander of the Audacieux, accompanied by the doctor in charge, visits the men of his vessel's crew. They have almost all been badly burnt during the ship's death throes. In the simple handshake that they exchange, there is all the esteem that they have for each other, and the satisfaction of having done their duty, all of their duty. But there are also the dead, those of the war fleet, the soldiers and the civilians, innocent victims of this curious combat. Governor-General Boisson has had a funeral service said to honor their memory. After the service, while the Black Guard presents arms, the man who saved Dakar leaves the church. He goes back to his palace in the company of his aide-de-camp, Captain Renoncial. All precautions had been taken. Since the start of the attack, the women and children had been removed from the danger of the bombing. Once calm had returned, a train took them back to Dakar, where they will find the homes that the French were able to defend. In this native school, these little black children will continue to study French. Protected by those who are able to defend them, each day they will learn to improve their knowledge of this new France and the man who leads it.